Many of you probably have so-called disturbing memories from your childhood. For some, it is an encounter with a wildly barking dog. For others, a fall from a height, and so on. And these events live in the back of the memory for a while, until the event of the present does not make them come out of a kind of hibernation. Unfortunately, I am not one of those people whose repressed memories can only cause mild bewilderment and a sense of déjà vu. My recently resurfaced images of the past have forced me to relive the indescribable horror that I would not wish even my worst enemy to experience. I hope that by putting it all down on paper, I will dull my fear a bit and perhaps find a way to overcome it. At that time, I was about 12 or 13 years old. I can't say for sure. Before we moved to Ivanovo region, we lived in Voronezh in a small 2-story dilapidated house from the Stalinist times. Like many kids my age, I spent late nights on the street. Sandboxes and playgrounds were of no particular interest to us. Our permanent place of dislocation was the forest behind the garage cooperative. The entrance to it served as a barely visible path that goes around the corner of the shed of one of our neighbors. There we had a blast. The clearing was fully equipped for our needs. A treehouse made of old boards, a tent made of twigs, a homemade table, and much more. None of the adults looked there, so we could do whatever we wanted there. Boys tried smoking for the first time. Some even brought carbide or firecrackers. It was only after an unfortunate fire that smoked through one of the walls of Uncle Boris's garage that our parents started to chase us away from there. But we still sneaked out there, going farther into the woods, expanding our possessions for games. That's how we came across the thing that forever discouraged us all from going to that cursed place. That day, my friends Aliona, Dima, and I were sitting in the treehouse, bored as usual. Nostalgia and magazines did not bring pleasure, so we sat sluggishly and thought about their own, occasionally interchanging phrases, and the week-long heat did not add any points to our enthusiasm. Suddenly, Elena came to life and said conspiratorially, "Boys, and bet that I can hide so that you will never find me." "What are you talking about? Are you going to play hide and seek in such a stuffy atmosphere?" Dima sneered lazily. "Come on, there's nothing to do anyway. Let's go." Elena, who had already come close to the exit from our shelter, was not relenting. "Alan, stop. We are now just out of breath and soaked like pigs. I don't want to hang around in the bushes in a horde of mosquitoes." Comrade changed to a pleading tone. "So sit here, and I'll go." Elena pouted her lip, stepping on the first step. Then Dima stood up resolutely and turned to his friend. I knew that he was not indifferent to her, so he did not want to leave her alone without his company. "Listen, Alan. You sit here. You'll get lost, and we'll have to look for you later." Dima obviously could not find a clear reason to stop her friend. Aliona, in response to this, slyly squinted and sang, "Whoever is the last, that stinks." And with these words, she went down. Dima and I jumped up from our seats, but only managed to see the hem of her spotted dress disappearing in the green bushes. Like experienced paratroopers, we quickly jumped to the ground and ran after Elena. Like the action heroes we had seen on the tapes, we split up to take our friend in a ring. But time after time, we bumped into each other. All this time, Elena's laughter was heard from left and right, and I could not understand how she maneuvered so quickly in such a thicket. Already exhausted, I, panting, began to call Dimka. My comrade called back 20 meters away. In his voice, too, I could hear the hoarseness of a long run. We scrambled towards him through the lapwood and sat down to rest. My friend kept listening and looking around, as if he suspected that Elena was sitting somewhere nearby and laughing at us fools. And his gut feeling was not in vain. From somewhere in front, there was Elena's gleeful laughter. We jumped up and with renewed vigor rushed to the call. We then forgot about the fact that we were hundreds of meters away from home and had wandered into a real wilderness. After about 10 minutes of wandering through the impenetrable ravines, we came to a marshy meadow. Pulling apart the thorny spruce branches, Dima and I froze in amazement. In front of us stood a wooden house leaning to the left. The boards on the facade, as well as the foundation, were swollen and darkened from moisture. The windows were boarded up and covered with torn film, the kind used to cover garden beds. The roof, covered with shingles rotted from time, was mottled with holes and holes. Dima raised his eyebrows in amazement. We looked at each other apprehensively. Had Aliona really climbed into this shack? And immediately, as a confirmation of our thoughts, Elena's figure emerged from the doorway. Dimka and I shrieked with fright. The friend, not at all embarrassed, pointed her finger at us, laughed, and disappeared in the darkness of the building. "Elena, you... Well, we'll get you now!" roared, full of adrenaline, Dima. "Wait a minute, there's knee-deep mire. Shah's dive. And remember, as you were called. Elena, come out, we're giving up." I tried to stop the heated friend, at the same time trying to shout to the girlfriend. "So how did she get in there? If it's a swamp? In the air? Or what?" Dima was still full of rage. "You're asking me. I don't know myself, but I'm definitely not going there," I replied. Dima strained his throat and called Elena again. She didn't answer. I began to run through the worst thoughts in my head. What if she fell under the rotten floor and went up to her neck in the swamp? Time passed. Nervousness grew. And with it, grew tension. The fire in the oil added the sepulchral silence. Elena did not respond, no matter how much we did not shout. So, anyway, I'm calling the adults. You, Dim, keep her here in case she wants to go out herself. I'll be right back. I've already gone 10 steps, as suddenly from the house, like a rumble in an empty room, came Elena's lisping voice. "Don't need adults, I'm here. Come here." I was taken aback, and before I could answer, Dima shouted, "Elena, it's really not funny anymore. Come on out, and let's go home. Parents will be worried." "No, they won't. Come here quickly, I'll show you something," broadcasted a cheerful voice from the darkness. I was very angry with Elena. Not only did she scare us to death, but now she's sitting there and mocking us. I had already gathered air in my chest to properly reprimand the restless friend, as from the belly of the house very quietly said, "Don't be grown-ups. I'm here. Come here." Dima turned to me. In his eyes read incomprehension and a veil of gradually accumulating fear. "They won't. Come here quickly. I'll show you something," came again monotonously from the darkness. I too went limp for a second, trying to digest what I had heard a moment before, with the same pauses, with the same intonation, the same voice. I don't know what came over me at that moment, but I whispered to myself, completely unexpectedly, "Ah, Alain." I said, "Come here." It was no longer our friend's voice. The silence of the forest was cut through by a demonic roar that made Dima and I fall to the ground in a daze. Tears of panic froze on the lower eyelids of our eyes. We almost synchronously began to hysterically crawl back to the forest, already realizing that nothing good would come of it. From the blackness of the door came heavy, rapid knocks on the boardwalk. My companion and I did not even have time to realize what was happening as human legs flew straight at us. Crooked, blue-white limbs inexplicably jumped in our direction, creepily crunching and limping. We shrieked and rushed away. The legs of the unknown creature did not lag a step behind, giggling Alan's voice. The irregularity and absurdity of the situation made us run faster, as far as possible. Dima stumbled and whimpered every now and then, and I tugged his sleeve, just as he did, flooded with tears. We couldn't remember the way and ran at random. The forest didn't end, but only became thicker and darker, as if we were moving in the opposite direction. Our strength began to leave us, and I took a desperate step. I pulled my friend with me into a deep ravine. We rolled down the clay slope and lay down in the bushes with our hands over our mouths. Somewhere above our heads, the branches were cracking. "The last one to go is the stinker. Don't be grown-ups. I'll show you something. Come here." The incoherent phrases of that terrible creature were spreading. Dima silently sobbed into his fist, pressed against my shoulder. I was already mentally saying goodbye to my life. Different fragments of thoughts began to come into my head. how my father bought me a shiny airplane, how I bragged about it in the yard, how on New Year's Eve we launched fireworks, how I first learned to swim. My whole life, hanging by a thread, flashed before my eyes. Find it. Suddenly and loudly, the feet screamed, standing right above us. We dashed out of the bushes with a bullet and rushed to run again. The demonic limbs leaped off the cliff right at us and missed, clattering to the ground with a thud. I turned around for a second. My legs, like caterpillars, were wriggling on the soft clay, struggling to get up. I took advantage of this and started to hysterically push Dimka to get away. A fallen spruce tree caught my eye. We are on the right track. After running a dozen meters more, we flew out on a familiar place. Without looking back past our hut, my friend and I ran screaming into the yard and collapsed in convulsions in the middle of the playground, flooded with tears. Then it was like a fog. We were instantly surrounded by adults. I heard their voices, but from horror and fatigue, I could not understand what they were saying. Then I remember only the blurred squeal of the ambulance siren, and then darkness. For a few days I sat at home. My mother gave me hot tea with valerian. Later, she told me that she sat over my bed at night every now and then, tucking me back in when I jumped up and gasped for air in a sleepy delirium. Mom cried quietly, watching me suffer day after day. In all this time, I never uttered a word. Only at the end of the second week did the shock finally wear off, and I told my parents the details of that unfortunate day. Gradually, I grew up and forgot about this nightmare, writing it off as a child's imagination. But one day, the chilling events of the past came back to me with renewed vigor. While sorting through the boxes of photo albums at our dacha, I came across an old photo. It showed Dimka, Alyona, and me sitting on a bench near the house. My gaze stopped sharply on Alyona. From the brown and white photo, the eyes of that girl looked at me full of joy. It was only now that I had a thought in my head. After that day, we never saw her again. No one saw her or mentioned her. Everyone had forgotten about her. It was as if she had vanished from the world, as if she had never existed. This irrational circumstance entered my brain and began to scrape at it with a sharp claw. In the midst of these musings, I walked up to my mother, and like a programmed person, I asked, "What happened to Alina?" Mom suddenly turned white and sat silently in her chair. She immediately realized what I was talking about. After a long breath, Mom began, "Son, I'm sorry. I should have realized that sooner or later you will remember everything. I should have told you about it earlier. The thing is that a few days before that, Alyona disappeared without a trace. The whole yard looked for her, called the police, all to no avail. And then, when you and Dima said that you went for a walk with her that day, my dad, together with the neighbors, went to comb the woods and found Alyona dead. And not just dead, but torn to pieces. Some scumbag had cruelly mocked her. Only legs and a scrap of ribbon were left of the poor girl, by which her remains were identified. After that incident, her parents were found in the apartment, and next to them an open package with rat poison. They could not bear the loss of their beloved daughter. We told you kids that Alyona moved away with her mom and dad. We wanted to protect you from the harsh truth, to erase it from your memory like a terrible dream. But now you know the truth, son. Now you know everything." Mom was in tears again. I came to her, sat next to her, and embraced her. "Ah, the house. Did they find the house? Alyona was hiding from us in the house. There was never any house there, just a forest and a swamp," Mom started. But I wasn't really listening to her. I was piecing together the disjointed puzzles of the past. It turns out that that day with us was not Alyona at all. From the very beginning, it was not her. Someone or something had deliberately lured us into the forest to tear us apart as inhumanely as our friend. But we miraculously managed to escape. What we were up against then is still a mystery. Could it have been an evil spirit or a demon? or some other dark entity that took possession of an innocent child's soul for its own diabolical purposes. It doesn't matter. What matters is that it feeds on us and dwells in the house that is and the house that isn't.